Ask for it and you shall receive, like a very good, efficient and handsome FedEx delivery man. Here is Manchester City's tactics under Pep Guardiola. So let's talk some tactics. So if you look here, the light blue, there's a few blanks in there. And again, as I explained on the Manchester United clip, don't go crazy. This is just what I think Guardiola will do when he comes into Manchester, because he likes things set a certain way, as he has done with Barcelona and moving on to Bayern Munich before he comes to Manchester and mixes things up. So at the back, expect this 4-1-2-3 style formation. I'll explain why that isn't just a standard 4-3-3. I'm sure you guys know by now Pep Guardiola's style. Hart in goals, Sagna at the back, Otamendi and Clichy. Where's Company? Where's Vincent Company? Well, a guy who has just happened to obtain his 32nd injury this season, no longer for me is guaranteed a starting spot. You need a centre-back that is going to be the focal point of your back line, that is going to be consistently there without the worry of injuries, and that you can build around. Otamendi is by no means any star player. Him and Mangala, for me, would be one of the first riding the bench if I had two quality centre-backs. So don't be surprised if Pep Guardiola goes and looks for a star centre-back in the transfer window. Everyone's talking about Bonucci, although I don't think the Italian will leave Juventus, so he maybe needs to look for another one. The midfield, new signing Gundogan. What a signing. Typical Guardiola signing coming in. Even though he leaves Bayern Munich, he's still raiding that team for all of their talented players. There's actually rumours that Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang are on his hit list as well. So this will free up David Silva, which I'll talk about mainly tactically when it comes to Manchester City. They need another midfielder. They need Fernandinho. I don't think are going to cut it in Pep Guardiola's system. He likes all ball-playing midfielders, but also have hard-working mentality behind them. I don't think they're as comfortable on the ball as the likes of Guardiola, has used before. Look at Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta, Xabi Alonso, Philip Lahm, all these world-class players. Do they come under that same umbrella? No, not for me. The attacking three, however, I think he'll stick with, and maybe add an Aubameyang, which will push Aguero to get back to that consistent form that he was in when Manchester City won the Premier League on that historic last day. De Bruyne, what a player he will be under Guardiola. I'm comfortable in saying that. And Raheem Sterling. So similar to the last clip, we talked about Jose Mourinho, and I highlighted one of his most successful teams in Inter Milan and how he'll look to utilize some of the best strengths that he encompassed in that team and bring it to the red side of Manchester. Same thing's going to happen here, fellas. Let's take a look at what I thought was Pep Guardiola's strongest 11 under Barcelona. 2010-2011 Barcelona, to be precise. Let's take a look. So as we all remember this team, my God, they were dominant. Jesus. Valdez in goals, Alves, Piqué, Puyol, Abidal, Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta, Pedro, Messi even come through the centre. He never really moved out to that right side and wandered into the free role until the latter Guardiola years, moving it into Luis Enrique with that interim in between with the manager that I'm not even going to mention because he was shite. Either way, David Villa as well would take up that central role. And if you look at an interview, which is one of the first things I'm going to highlight, if you look at an interview with Thierry Henry, he talked about how under Guardiola, he completely changed his perception as to what he was going to be in a Barcelona jersey. At Arsenal, he was the star man up top. He would play that sole striker role. But there's something about Guardiola. He likes to alternate this formation so that it almost turns into a 4-4-2 in attack. So before I get to one of my main points in the next graphic, I want to bring you to the iPad really quick. If you look at, specifically with Henry's time, he would play a very similar role to David Villa in the way that Lionel Messi's role as the main man in centre would drop deep, similar to what you may see Aguero do. And in doing so, it would allow for the likes of Thierry Henry to come inside, or if it was David Villa, and Pedro would hold it out wide. And these two would partner each other as a front pairing. What does this remind you of? Oh yeah, Thomas Müller and Lewandowski. Very similar to what those two happen to play like when they happen to start alongside each other in Bayern Munich. And it allows for one of the wider players to remain wide. Pep Guardiola likes to have his two kind of main focus points of the attack work well together and keep one of those players in the front three very wide, whether it's Arjen Robben, whether it's Douglas Costa. You rarely see in his time him play two very wide players. You wouldn't see him play a Pedro and in modern days a Douglas Costa together, because both of those players they're utility players. They play wide, they hug the line, but he likes players to come in centrally, take the ball, and form those triangles. And talking about those triangles, what is he going to try and do at Manchester City? Look here. He encompasses triangles in every team in the attacking form. So this is a fantastic graphic that I found online which talks about how he loves to form these attacking triangles. Each player needs to have at least 3 to 4 options when they receive the ball, and every single player needs to be comfortable taking the ball. He took this formation similar that he mastered at Barcelona, brought it over to Bayern Munich, and many people are questioning his success in Germany. I think it's not even a question. Yes, he never won the Champions League, but that's, for me, it's because he never had that X-factor player such as Lionel Messi. They had many talented players in there, but Lionel Messi, as we see when he destroyed Bayern Munich 2 Champions League seasons ago, he just had that ability to kind of disconnect those triangles and come into an area where players like Xabi Alonso were not comfortable wandering, and it would break up that formation. So what you're going to see from this Manchester City team is first of all, Gundogan is a great signing. Why? Because Gundogan is not like similar to a Matic or I would say even a Makelele back in his day. Gundogan is almost trying to reform this position where he can play deeper, but he's also a supporting midfielder. So those 3 midfielders will need to rotate. So what you usually see at the moment for Manchester City is when they play this formation in the middle, is usually this sort of triangle. Pep Guardiola does not stand by this. He likes someone like Busquets to kind of play that deeper role. I know many people have been arguing with me in the comments talking about how Gundogan doesn't play that deeper role in Dortmund, and I do agree with that, but he will play it in Manchester City because he can possess the ability to drop back deep. But you will see a kind of alternate midfield. So if Gundogan drops deep into this role, he needs to have 3 options. So the ball's played into his feet. You'll expect David Silva, when I thought he was at his prime, pulling into this area to try and pick up the ball in this area. And if you listen to Thierry Henry's interview, the reason why Thierry Henry, first of all, would be told to hug the line is to leave all this space for Andres Iniesta in here to go on and just evolve and become better and better the more space he has. That's what David Silva is going to do in this Manchester City jersey. Gundogan will try and patrol this area, but his job will not only to be that patrolman, similar to what you see with Philip Lahm. He'll maybe take up more of a Xabi Alonso role, and he'll alternate in here, and he maybe pick up the ball in the middle of the park. And what that needs is the other midfielder who, at the moment, everyone's talking about Paul Pogba. He would be a perfect fit in midfield of Gundogan, Pogba, and David Silva. Jesus, I would not want to come up against that team. The Premier League is going to be phenomenal next season no matter what. That's why I'm so excited about it. But it is that alternate, that ability to move your midfield. Philip Lahm would sometimes support the attack and drag himself out wide and allow for the likes of Xabi Alonso to sit a little bit deeper. But with Manchester City this season, they have those 2 deep-lying midfielders, Fernando and Fernandinho. And when David Silva wasn't informed, Yaya Toure just didn't cut it anymore in that triangle. He would wander too far away and leave them compact. So very similar to what happened against Real Madrid away, is you'd often see Yaya Toure chasing the ball down here. Fernando and Fernandinho would sit deeper, and this triangle would not form because it's far too split out. What you need is your midfielders to work as a trio, like you see in Barcelona, even when they're not in possession. Busquets, Iniesta and Rakitic, very similar to that triangle formation that Guardiola, I would say, installed in that team. Luis Enrique does not want to change it because what works, works. So you have to stick by that. And what you're going to see from Pep Guardiola is trying to get the best out of Kevin De Bruyne. Now, Kevin De Bruyne with Belgium is given almost a free role. You might see him wander out here on the left-hand side, or you might see him alternate and move out to the right-hand side. But what he's going to try and do is he's going to try and work Kevin De Bruyne and Sergio Aguero as a pairing. Now, this is something that I just mentioned there with Thierry Henry and David Villa. David Villa, a more central striker for Barcelona, would often play out wide and make these runs in behind and try and split the defence. Kevin De Bruyne is perfect at getting the ball into feet, but you'll also see him pick up the ball a little bit further up the park. Why? Because Sergio Aguero will be told, or whoever else is going to play up top if Aguero happens to be out injured, to drop deep and create this space in here so that De Bruyne can pick it up and do what he does best. Because when Kevin De Bruyne picks up the ball here, I'm going to tell you guys right now, that game against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, I thought Kevin De Bruyne was so ineffective. Why? Because he kept getting the ball driven into his feet in this area where he's so deep. And Kevin De Bruyne is a talented player. But when you get Kevin De Bruyne the ball in his own half or at the halfway line, he's not getting as many options as he should have. Kevin De Bruyne likes to have one thing in his mind, and that's getting the ball into his right foot and striking it, or playing a 1-2 and getting in behind. So when you have him drop deep and pick up that ball when he's taking it in here, I don't think he's as effective. So you're going to see Kevin De Bruyne kind of work very similar to that David Villa Messi-esque partnership and try and work alongside Sergio Aguero. So at times, Kevin De Bruyne might look at that striker, and that leaves room for one man who, by the way, a lot of people don't think will fit in to this system at Guardiola. But I think unless they sign a Mkhitaryan or someone who's a naturally gifted wide man, you're going to see Raheem Sterling, I think, play a little bit more under Pep Guardiola. Jesus Navas is not the final product. I mentioned him on my clip talking about Man City players that have to be hitting the road, and I think he's one of them. Raheem Sterling needs to work on his finishing product, but he's very young, and he's an ideal player to fit into that front three for Pep Guardiola, because Raheem Sterling is one of the best players at just hugging that touchline. He's one of the best at one-on-one. So while these two players, maybe it's Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne in this area, are going to work well, Raheem Sterling's job is to drag these defenders out wide and allow for a midfield runner to come up and allow for some alternate possession in midfield, these triangles here. And you want to see triangles work between your midfield trio and your front two strikers. But this job of Raheem Sterling is very similar to an Arjen Robben when he's in his prime. Take the ball out wide and try and create space in behind. So there's many things that you may see happen in Pep Guardiola's reign as Manchester City manager. The main thing is expect transitions. Expect players to come in to fit into a role which is already set in stone. I'd be very surprised if Pep Guardiola left that formation that's worked so well for him in the past. I think his main objective is to come in and deliver a Premier League trophy. And as we see in the past, Pep Guardiola's record is one that you can't even question. With 14 trophies in 4 seasons at Barcelona and 20 trophies in 6 seasons at Bayern Munich, what can you say about him? This guy has just encompassed what it means to be a tactical genius and take their teams past what you're expecting them to do and go on to achieve greatness no matter what. So I would not bet against the Spaniard because he knows what it takes to win games. He knows what it takes to form that structure that's very hard to break down. And you never know, you might see a Man City team very similar to one like this. Hit us in the comment section below. Stay tuned. We'll bring you the next edition of this, which is Antonio Conte's Chelsea. Will Chelsea adapt that 3-5-2 that Antonio Conte experimented with and then mastered at Juventus and made them such a dominant team in Italy? Hit us in the comments on Twitter at Francis_Maxwell, at TYT Sports. You don't get any analysis like this anywhere else.